Hello everybody, my name is Daulton Nelson and today I'd like to talk about a game I just beat. That game being Bangai-O for the Nintendo 64. Bangai-O was developed by Treasure, published by Entertainment Software Publishing, and it is a 2D side-scrolling action game. Here we are yet again, with another Treasure title, which should come to no surprise to anyone at this point. I've loved all the games I've played from them thus far, and was expecting as much with today's game, Bangai-O, which is a Japanese exclusive title on the Nintendo 64, but not totally on the other console it's available on, the Dreamcast, which is available here in America and in Europe. Unfortunately, buying a Dreamcast and a physical copy of this game is a little out of my price range, so I went with the same method I used when playing Sin and Punishment, loading a ROM file onto a flash card. And with that, I have now played through this game, and I can say this is one of the most difficult games I've played from Treasure behind Ikaruga, but Bangai-O does fall short in certain aspects. The first thing you'll notice right away is that Bangai-O's aesthetics are pretty wacky. There is a lot of weird characters and bizarre visual design choices throughout the game. Since all the text in the game is in Japanese, I looked at some footage of the Dreamcast version, and here's what I could glean what the game is about. Riki and his sister Mami live with their father, until one day Riki gets in a fight with a violent gang of thugs, and loses. The thugs, still angry with the altercation, goes to Riki's house, and beats the crap out of his father. Riki and Mami comfort their father while he is hurt. And while they're doing so, the father reveals that he was, or has finished, building a mech called the Bangai-O, which Riki and Mami use to exact revenge on the gang. The rest of the game, from what I can tell, is about them taking down the gang and its high-ranking members piece by piece. And how you do that is by controlling the Bangai-O, which is actually very simple to understand. In fact, the game itself is very simple to pick up and play at any time. The first thing you'll see is what seems to be the base of operations, where you can jump into a level, go back to the title screen, or if you've already beaten the level, you can view the map of the level for enemy and item positions. However, I would say to be careful when using the UI in the game. For some reason, Treasure made it so using the joystick will select whatever option you're floating over, which doesn't make sense obviously, because the first thing you would think of is navigating the menus with the stick. So make sure to use the directional pad instead for that. Once you're into a level, the goal is to find and defeat the boss in a certain amount of time. The levels themselves can be really open, or almost maze-like, so it's best to understand how the game plays. You move the Bangai-O with the D-pad, with 8 directions you can move in. The movement itself is a bit floaty, as the mech is moved with a jetpack. This type of movement can be to the game's benefit, as you're a bit more careful when moving through the level, plus the feel of momentum can fuel your adrenaline. However, the floaty quality of the movement can also be a bit of a detriment, as the movement can be a bit awkward to deal with, as well as some points in the game require a bit more of a precise approach. In addition to the basic movement, you can also press a direction twice to have the Bangai-O move faster and more directly in that direction. To shoot with the Bangai-O, you use the joystick. Again, you can shoot in 8 directions. Now the great thing about the shooting mechanic in the game is that Riki and Mami both apply different properties to the missiles you shoot. In fact, you can switch between the two on the fly with a single button press, which is awesome. Riki uses homing missiles that have a bit of a turn radius and are destroyed when they collide with walls, so it's best to use him in the more open parts of the game. Riki's missiles also deal more damage. Meanwhile, Mami's missiles do less damage, but can ricochet off of walls, meaning that she is better for the more cramped parts of a level. Mami's missiles do have a homing quality to them, but only if they ricochet off of a wall first. Otherwise, the missiles go in the direction you shoot them at. This character swap mechanic adds an almost strategy-like element to the gameplay of Bangai-O, as a certain character is great to use in certain situations. Now, what was the biggest draw of a mechanic for me was the super attack you can do when using the Z button. Depending on how long you press the button, you can shoot anywhere from 20 to 100 missiles at a time, which is a visual and interactive marvel. This attack is really cool, but you can't go on using it willy-nilly. There is a meter on the bottom left of the screen with a numerical value. When you use this super attack, this value goes down by the number of missiles you shoot. So, at the least, you'll need a value of 20 to use the attack. But on the plus side, you can hold a maximum value of 500. To get more value, you must collect fruits, which can be found by destroying the buildings and enemies in the game. Now, 100 missiles is the normal maximum amount of missiles you can fire at any time, unless you fire your super attack when a damaging object is very close to you while you're charging the attack. Taking this risk pays off spectacularly, as bonus missiles will be fired depending on how close you were to taking damage. I've seen as much as 200 bonus missiles being fired at a time, meaning that I was firing 300 missiles. It's great. This mechanic is amazing. It's one of the best mechanics I think Treasure has ever made. It's so amazing that it really pushes the Nintendo 64 to its limits and slows the game down dramatically while all of those projectiles are on the screen. Just be careful, as you can't move while you're charging the attack, which means you're very vulnerable. Speaking of vulnerability, this game is tough. Really tough. Bangai-O starts out very easy, and really eases you into what the game is all about. But once you get to about, I'd say level 20, is when the difficulty of the game starts skyrocketing. I was very surprised just how bold Treasure gets with their levels here, as each level somehow offers a harder experience from the previous one. I think the brutal difficulty of some of the latter levels in the game may turn off casual video game players. But if you persevere, you'll be met with tons of great, fast-paced, action-packed moments with a good catchy soundtrack playing in the background. There is a lot of skill that must be employed, which is rewarded. If you destroy 100 or more objects in a small amount of time, you'll be rewarded with a character upgrade. These upgrades can be accessed through a yellow vortex. In there, you can get an upgrade to your missile power, its penetration ability, which is how many bullets it can go through without getting destroyed, or you can gain a health point if you are damaged. These upgrades stack depending on how many hundreds of objects you have destroyed. So, for example, if you've destroyed 300 objects, whatever upgrade you pick, you'll get 3 of. You can see how many damage and penetration upgrades you've gotten under your health. If you destroy 500 or more objects in a small amount of time, you can also pick up an invincibility power-up, which acts very much like the Starman from Mario, where your character will visually shine, and running into objects destroys them. This invincibility power-up can even be found in certain hidden parts of levels, so be vigilant. Now, if I had to pick what the biggest problems of Bangai-O are, there are a few. First, Treasure is known for their creative boss designs, but here in Bangai-O, they aren't all that memorable. In fact, I would say the bosses are probably the weakest parts of the game. Plus, some of these bosses can be exceptionally difficult to beat, which is a good thing because they're bosses, but is also a bad thing when it takes time and effort to get through a level only to be quickly killed by its boss. Which is another thing of note. You can die very quickly in Bangai-O if you're not careful. When being damaged, you almost have no invincibility frames, so be on alert when you see multiple damaging objects come at you at once. Finally, there were times when I would get stuck from the level design and have to start the stage over again. Like, there are these blocks that fall, and sometimes block the way to progress through the level. I don't know if these moments were intentional or not from Treasure, but I did find these moments annoying. But in conclusion, Bangai-O is another absolutely fun title from Treasure. It's got satisfying mechanics, challenging difficulty, and a great feel to it overall. So I'm going to give it a final score of a 7 out of 10. If there are more memorable bosses, less moments of getting stuck, and the last few levels were a bit easier, I can see myself rating this game even higher. Still, if you like action platformers or shooters, you've got to play Bangai-O. That concludes my review for Bangai-O. If you like my reviews, you can like, comment, or subscribe. I also have social media links down in the description below. as well as a link to my online portfolio to see video game design works that I have done. And with that out of the way, please make sure to have a nice day.